Meet Reed Lance Rosenthal, rancher, #1 best-selling award-winning author, and unabashedly, unapologetically on the right side of the outstanding issues of our generation. But don't try to fence him in. Sometimes his positions will surprise you, because Reed is definitely his own man, with his own opinions. You might love him, you might hate him, but you won't be able to stop listening. Step over to the right side with Reed.
Howdy, listeners and viewers, coast to coast, the Gulf to the 51st state, and around the globe. Reed Lance Rosenthal on the Right Side Radio and the Cowboys Take. You know, all those video channels, Truth, Gab, X, Brighteon, Pradeon, Rumble, YouTube, although YouTube doesn't like me much, so it kind of delays putting up the shows, you know what I mean? Poor Google. I didn't know I'd have such an impact on such a monster. Oh well. Well, today we are going to discuss, we're going to do a little current rat-a-tat-tat because there's all sorts of things popping. In fact, I delayed bringing this show out by one day just because of what's happening over there in the Mideast. We're going to talk about that a little bit. Got a great article on the website for you on the rightsideradio.com, and you need to read it. It's very interesting on the Mideast. We're going to talk about some other things that are going on, including the National Guard, the Marines, etc., in various cities, and what the left has planned. And I'm going to bring to your attention what's really going on with all this nonsense in the streets of LA and Minneapolis and Seattle and Denver and wherever, you know. The organic, spontaneous, grassroots? No, not so much, folks. This is the communist playbook from the commies who have toppled governments around the world ad infinitum. In fact, my next show is going to be a history of how just this type of insurrection, just this type of kind of street violence has precipitated the fall of governments and the institution of a communist or socialist government. This is a playbook they have used for, give or take, 150 years. Particularly since about 1917 or so, our buddy Lenin over there in Russia. He kind of fine-tuned the project. And I've brought you that history of that particular communist revolution. Did you know that only 300 people overthrew the Russian government? It only took 300 people. So don't sit back in your easy chair and go, oh, you know, there's a lot more of us than there are of them. No. You have no idea how dastardly these folks are. Saul Alinsky's rulebook for handbook for radicals, right? Which, by the way, you can get it on our website. There's a link to it on the rightsideradio.com. Yeah, this is fire, and Trump's doing exactly the right thing. But more on that when we get into it. And I'm going to bring you a complete rendition here after the rat-a-tat-tat of who is really behind this grassroots, spontaneous, organic uprising that just happens to coincide with the exact same signs and the exact same buses and many of the same faces in cities simultaneously around the United States. Poof, you know, it's all a coincidence. And then, like I said, this next show, the history of these types of uprisings around the globe and how a minuscule amount of folks rioting in the street have brought down governments. Which, by the way, as a little hint, a little foreshadowing of where we're going with this, exactly what they're trying to do here. This has nothing to do with immigration. It has nothing to do with civil rights. It has to do with true revolution. Okay. As you know, along those lines, Trump has moved 2,000 California National Guard into LA. I think he's moving National Guard into San Francisco also. And he's also deployed 700 Marines to LA. Good for him. Gavin Newsom sued him. You know, I mean, who cares about American citizens? Things getting burned down, cars overturned. It's not a problem. They're just expressing their First Amendment rights in their mostly peaceful, organic demonstrations. So Gavin got a Clinton judge, another district court judge. I hope Congress fixes this mess in the district courts, to slap an injunction nationwide, of course, on Trump Trump using the National Guard under the Insurrection Act or otherwise. And he was slapped down. Gavin Newsom went out like a fool. I had this big press conference, rat-a-tat-tat, socialists for the people. And then 9 hours later, the Ninth Circuit said, no, Mr. Trump can do exactly that. And they overruled the Clinton appointee. Okay. So the National Guard is still in L.A., despite what the left-wing media is trying to tell you. And they are still in a number of other locations around the United States. There are now National Guard and or troops, Marines mostly, in New Orleans, several of the cities back in the Northeast, Seattle, I believe in San Francisco, Minneapolis, Portland, I think, is on the list to be visited soon, Denver, Colorado. Yeah, Obama did a great job turning that state blue. How you doing down there in Colorado? Going to keep voting for that state legislature and your your upside down leftist governors and mayors? Wow, that's used to be such a great place. Anyway, I digress. In Colombia, the leading contender for the presidential race, a conservative, was shot, assassinated. Another playbook of the left. I mean, we saw it right here in Butler, Pennsylvania, and then on the golf courses down there in Florida, didn't we? And we've seen it with JFK. You don't want to get in the way of the communist deep state folks or the communist control puppeteers, because your life is not sacrosanct, but shall we say in extreme jeopardy. So anyway, this poor guy got shot in the head, of course. Who knows what security breakdowns, who got paid to do that. And you're seeing the same type of thing, either people are getting exiled, like Le Pen in France, the leader of the conservative movement there. A French court said she can't run for office for 5 years. Oh, well, how convenient is that? They didn't kill her, they just killed her political aspirations and the party that she heads. And in Germany, they're trying to outlaw the ADF, and there's been violence against higher level ADF members, which are the conservatives in Germany. They still did rather well in the parliamentary elections, but, the handwriting's on the wall, particularly over there in Europe, where in Britain, you can get jailed for doing a comedy meme that affronts the government sensibilities and the government line. Yeah. Free speech. The Magna Carta. Hey, you folks over in UK, all I can tell you is you better gear up. And you folks around the world who listen to me, you better not let yourself be disarmed. Okay? That's the one thing that really keeps the United States separate from all these other places. Armed citizens. That's right. A far bigger bunch than the Army, than the National Guard, all of them put together, and a far bigger bunch than the folks who are throwing Molotov cocktails in the streets of the big cities right now. All right. There was an executive order by Trump on drugs. This is actually pretty cool, pretty great. The executive order basically says that no higher price may be paid by an American for any drug than is paid for that same drug in any other developed country in the world. So up to now, basically, we've been paying higher prices, as with everything, and subsidizing the rest of the world. They get cheap pills, we get expensive pills, because, as Barry Obama would say, we should just be another seat at the table of nations. Yes, we're far too wealthy. We need to spread that wealth. Well, it's not going to be spread through the pharmaceutical companies anymore, and they're howling like stuck pigs. So that the pig spear was thrown accurately, shall we say. So anyway, that's great. That should, by the way, lower drug costs over here over the next 6 months or so. You should see 50 to 80% reductions in whatever drugs, medications, that you are using, whether it's for heart pressure or whatever it happens to be. Okay. COVID. Oh, well, here we are again. It's COVID time. COVID. It's unbelievable that they're trying to bring out this playbook, right? They tried it with the monkeypox, and they tried it with the avian flu. They're still trying it with the avian flu. It's all gain of function crap. It was all stimulated by Fauci and his globalist ilk. Hopefully he will be one of the people tried for treason and then crimes against humanity. But over there in China, there's suddenly reports, and remember, the Communist Chinese government doesn't allow any news out of that country that they don't want you to listen to. Think about that last COVID deal. And people are like huge sore throats and violent coughing and fatigue and the whole 9 yards. And although it's less lethal, they say, over there in China, it's far more uncomfortable. So COVID supposedly now has spread from China to the Philippines, to Malaysia, to the Vietnam, to the Koreas. So, get ready, folks. I hope you have ivermectin. It's a wonder drug. As we have learned, 4 years after everybody told us it was horse paste and veterinary medicine. How could you take that stuff? You need remdesivir. It's designed and it will kill you. Yay, planet Earth. Okay. Once again, I got carried away. By the way, a bunch of articles on the COVID page, some under family safety, have been added this week. All sorts of studies coming out on these jabs. And RFK, to his credit, has now taken them off the recommended vaccine list and basically taken them out of circulation for pregnant women and children. Unfortunately, 11 million children already got the needle, which is not good, okay? There are things that you can do if you unfortunately got the jab or your kids got the jab or whatever. And that's on the COVID page also. The Wellness Company has medications that could tamp down the spike protein, which is the little monster, as it was designed to do, that does nasty things to you, shall we say, after you get the jab. So good for RFK. I like that guy more and more and more. He's doing a hell of a job at ADHS. He's also completely replaced the Vaccine Approval and Review Board. All the former board was in Fauci's pockets, pharmaceutical company pockets, and the pockets of who knows who, probably Communist China. But they're all gone. New scientific. Wow, what a novel concept. Scientific people on a vaccine board? Who would have thought? So he's doing great things. Washington State. This is unbelievable, right? Washington State has started a ballot initiative. Good for you out there in Western Washington State, you folks who still have living brain cells and common sense. And the ballot initiative is, hold on to your bippy. This is really radical. You have to prove you're a United States citizen, and you have to have a photo ID to vote, and all mail-in voting will be limited. They may not get that done at the state level just because they have this, leftist legislature, supermajority, and a moronic governor. But they certainly get it done for federal elections because Trump just came out with an executive order, which, by the way, a Obama appointee district judge said is unconstitutional. It's unconstitutional, folks. Did you know it's unconstitutional to ask to verify somebody's citizenship before they vote in the United States election? Think about that one. That'll tell you a little bit about the left, the communists, and where they're going with all this. Anyway, they have a ballot initiative coming out. If you know anybody in Washington State, they need a certain number of signatures to get it on the ballot. Call those people, get them involved, get them out getting signatures. Okay, it's going to be how do you eat the election fraud elephant? One bite at a time. All right. China has deployed all three, as I understand it from various reports, of its aircraft carriers to the waters just south of Taiwan. Once again, I don't believe, if you listen to my last shows over the last 2 or 3 months, I don't believe China will attack Taiwan. They don't have to. They'll eventually get Taiwan without firing a single shot, folks. They will, unfortunately. But, they're rattling the saber and they're doing exactly what I said they would do, which is to try and stretch the United States thin, to get us to spend money. In this way, they're just like Barry Obama, right? The Cloward and Piven theory. The more they spend, the more debt they have, the weaker they are, the better China, the worse the United States. However, China has significant problems. Their debt as a ratio is almost up there with ours. I don't know if you know that or not. That's how they fueled their 5% GDP growth. There's all sorts of reports. I have an article on the website under China, Our Enemy, and Rat-a-tat-tat about how Chinese government officials are forcing members of various politburos and departments and whatever, particularly out in the hinterlands, particularly in the agricultural districts, to lie about figures in income to push up GDP, which is nowhere near what they're saying it is. Oh, do you mean a government lying about economic statistics? Shudder me, Betsy. All the governments in the world must get together and have tea and go, man, how can we bamboozle those poor fools now? All right. I don't think this is going to come to anything over there in Taiwan. The mainstream media isn't touching it with a 10-foot pole. What else is new? But you need to know that there's action in the South China Sea. Okay. PPI and CPI, right? Producer Price Index, both the core level and the, should we say, general level, producers, manufacturers, et cetera. And the CPI, which is the Consumer Price Index, by the way, with or without housing and fuel. I mean, let's leave that out because who needs heat? Who needs to run a car? And by God, who needs a roof over their head? Both went down and they were less than the targets. Remember my show last week? Tariffs are deflationary. Not as the mainstream media and the hysterical economists, leftist economists, have been screaming and yelling from the rooftop about higher prices. And that's not to say inflation is dead. It's not dead at all. In fact, the real inflation rate, if you want to go to shadowgovernmentstatistics.com or realgovernmentstatistics.com, you'll find is around 9% right now, which is, of course, what you're seeing on the shelves. Some things are coming down, some things are going up. Overall, though, prices in general are coming down. Tariffs are deflationary. Okay. We'll see what happens with the next month's deal, which is when you'll really see the first effect of the tariffs that are in place. In the meantime, the tariffs have generated, maybe a little bit, $10 billion. Who cares about that? Given our $37 trillion debt, it's peanuts, pennies. Not worth stooping over to pick up if you were found it on the street. But we'll see what happens next month with the reports, to the extent you can trust the reports. And because that's when the first, should we say, real tariff influences will be kicking in. It'll be interesting. I'm kind of looking forward to seeing those numbers, as jaundiced as they may be, or should we say as manipulated as they may be. Okay, let's talk about our ranch story, which I really should have started off with. So the other night, I'm kind of sitting there trying to work on my books, which I'm way behind on. I'm so sorry, readers. They are coming. If you're subscribed to the publisher's website, www.threadswestseries.com. That's threadswestseries.com. There'll be a newsletter coming out here in the next week or two. It will also have the schedule of our book signings this summer, where we're going to be. And by the way, we'll be in Frontier Days in Cheyenne. First time signing at that show. We're looking forward to it. We've got lots of fans down in that area. But as I'm working dreary evermore, rapping, tapping at my chamber door, quoth the raven nevermore. Okay, enough of my Edgar Allan Poe quote. How's that? I hear this rumble, and I'm looking around going, holy moly, what's going on? It was rain and hail on the roof. And I mean, you're talking about rain, you're talking about, it fortunately wasn't a lot of hail, didn't damage the hay or the alfalfa, but it rained 2¼ inches in 15 minutes. 15 minutes. The ranch road going out from the house was literally 2 inches deep, grass to grass, and running down there like it was a creek. It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. And we ran around and checked everything, and we checked the reservoirs to make sure they weren't overflowing. We had to adjust a little bit, but everything held. We were delightfully pleased. The road needs a lot of work anyway after the rains of the last month, all of which, that's no complaint. Bring that rain. Bring it, bring it, bring it. But they're going to need a lot of work this summer. Lots of potholes. I mean, it's just a mess. It looks worse than the streets of New York. That'll give you an idea. All right. I had a founder's quote here for you, too. And I'll be damned if I can find it here on my sheet. But it was George Washington. It was great. So if I can find it by the end of the show, I'll bring it to you. And if not, I will bring it to you the next show when we discuss the history of communist street riots and how they brought down governments over the last 150 years. Now, all those fun people out there in the streets of LA and all the big cities, right? I mean, there was even a demonstration about 200 people in Cheyenne, Wyoming. That's the Colorado influence. You know, the Colorado state line is only 10 miles south of Cheyenne. Not good, folks. Not good. Anyway, these deals that are going on around the country in a completely coordinated, fully organized, pre-planned manner. Okay, they are well funded. They are organized, and they are, shall we say, jump starts. Okay, and what they're hoping to jumpstart is an overall insurrection, revolution, bring down the United States government. Now, you may think I'm a tinfoil hat. You may think there's tinfoil on this cowboy hat. No, it's exactly what they're trying to do, as you will see from the history books when we talk next here in 3 or 4 days. By the way, that's exactly what they were trying to do in 2020, right? When they burned down, literally burned down cities. You know, remember and the mainstream media hasn't changed. Do you remember all those deals with the reporter standing there, the buildings burning in the background saying, mostly peaceful protesters? Same deal now. I mean, it's like right out of the same playbook. These guys have the same playbook. Anyway, they use coordinated social media campaigns to organize, to plan, to arrive, to do their mischief. Supposedly, this LA riot was sparked by the arrest of a high mucky muck in the SEIU. I've brought you stories on the SEIU. This is the worst of the unions. It is completely communist controlled. It is funded by outside and international influences as well as left-wing groups and donors in the United States. And of course, it's funded by its 700,000 members because the dues they pay enrich the fat cats at the top, who then proclaim to want to spread the wealth. Everybody's wealth but theirs, I have a feeling. Anyway, the guy that was arrested, he was a high mucky muck in LA, and he decided to try and get involved in an ICE series of arrests and to obstruct ICE officers. Well, he got arrested, and of course, that was what blew up the deal, they say. Kind of like George Floyd they say, blew up the summer of 2020. You know, the summer of love, folks, the summer of love. In fact, these uprisings, which is what they are planned uprisings with a specific purpose that has nothing to do with immigration, absolutely mirror the Black Lives Matter nonsense that went on in 2020. It's the same playbook, just a different cloak. So we're going to take the cloak off a little bit today, okay? And by the way, one of the articles I have posted on the website, it's under terror, Constitution, rat-a-tat-tat, corruption, treason, you name it, and under the audio bar has a pile of links in it so that you can examine all these groups and everything I'm saying in depth. It's an excellent article out of the Epic Times, I might add. First of all, the FBI finally is investigating who's funding these deals. You know, the gas masks and the riot suits. And I mean, some of these so-called organic protesters are outfitted better than the police and military that they're facing. That might be a slight overstatement, but not far, not far. And that gear costs money, folks. This is not cheap stuff. I mean, one of those face masks is $60 to $100 or more, depending upon what kind of face mask you get. And they're handing them out of pickup trucks. They arrested one of those guys too. They're handing them out of pickup trucks to protesters who just happen to know exactly where to be at exactly the right time to get their riot gear. Okay. So the guy who got arrested, the SEIU guy, his name is, he was California president, by the way, of SEIU. David Huerta. Yes. Okay. Huerta, his defense was he wasn't interfering with police or federal law. No. He was, quote, exercising his First Amendment rights to observe and document law enforcement activity, unquote. It's the same deal, man. It's like the whole friggin', it's a repeat. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. So the SEIU chapters started posting announcements on all their platforms, X, Blue Sky, Instagram, on Friday after he got hauled off to the Hooskow. And then other groups allied with the SEIU, other communist groups, important little distinction there, took up the banner, worked their social media, and off it went, okay? SEIU's graphics, by the way, on their social media posts are quite interesting. You ought to take a look at it. It advertised a press conference with the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights. That's called CHIRLA. You've seen it on the signs. I know you have. CHIRLA. That's CHIRLA. So now you know what that is. And it took place, that press release, but that fueled another, like, instantaneous riot. Oh, well, coincidence. Must be just a coincidence. And CHIRLA, by the way, is left-wing. They say they are immigration-focused. Not so much. Insurrection, overthrow focused. By the way, they received $34 million. You're going to love this. $34 million in government grants in 2023 from Biden in Obama's third term. So the federal government under Obama are paying these people to burn down your cities with your tax dollars. I hope that makes you warm and fuzzy. Okay. By the way, they are also supposedly a nonprofit organization. I'd love to see the bank accounts of the top dogs. Be very interesting. Then we have the Union del Barrio and Centro CSO. Okay, there was another press conference. These jokers were at that one. Centro CSO and Union del Barrio, their spokesman, his name is Ron Gochez, and he told his audience about the need to, quote, resist ICE by any and all means necessary. Well, you know, I think this might be worse than J6. What do you think? Quote, if we organize, we can kick their asses out of every single ghetto, every single barrio, anywhere where our people are, unquote. Quote, who gives a damn about legality? Obviously not them. When these people have their boot on our neck, we have every single obligation, moral, historical, particularly historical, wait till you hear the next show, to defend our people, to defend our community, to defend our families by whatever means necessary. You know, that kind of sounds like, see if we can get the sun right here, because it's kind of setting. Oh, well, I'll just have a bright chin for you. So sorry about that. Let's see. Can we get the shadow? Oh, we can get a shadow, but I'll probably look kind of foolish here holding my hand up the whole show. What do you think? Okay. Union del Barrio describes itself as, let me give you this quote, it's great, entirely self-financed. You know, philanthropists, folks, philanthropists. Through membership dues, community contributions, and local fundraising. Who wants to bet me whatever you want to bet, any amount, that you track their checkbooks back and it's going to go to NGOs and that funding is going to go back to the Obama third term? You want to bet? And a lot of it's going to go back to, and this goes back to a show I brought you, 3 shows ago? Listen to it if you have not. It's pretty fascinating. A lot of that goes back to the hundreds of billions that the Biden auto pen mysteriously said was okay to spend in the 100 days that the cadaver was being propped up, still in office, after Trump's election, but before his inauguration. Oh, if I step back here, that way I'm not quite so ugly either. It's an improvement. All right, so I'll step back here into I'll step into the shadows. Okay. Anyway, Centro CSO says they are a member-funded grassroots group. You betcha. You betcha. Democratic Socialists of America, the DSA. They're kind of like exactly what they describe themselves to be. The Los Angeles chapter helped spread the SEIU graphics on social media and the graphics for Churla's press conference. There's no coordination here, folks. This is all, organic. It's organic. Quote, citizens who know their rights can disrupt and slow ICE incursions, as well as pressure local authorities to take action. Oh, how'd that work out for the local authority by the name of Gavin Newsom, excuse me. Oh, slip of the tongue. Not so well. And then we have police cars being vandalized, buildings being burned, Molotov cocktails being thrown at cops and military, people being beat with sticks, the whole 9 yards, okay? And the press isn't bringing you any of this stuff because it's mostly peaceful. And LA, the Party for Socialism and Liberation. Now, these guys kind of come more out and tell you what's really going on here. The Party for Socialism and Liberation. Communist government will liberate us, folks. The PSL, okay? They were carrying signs for the Party for Socialism and Liberation. And they encouraged the protests to continue their courageous stand over this past weekend, right? Same thing with this upcoming weekend. In fact, there's like demonstrations, riots, insurrectionists try and overthrow the government riots planned on the 14th in 56 major cities around the United States. But this isn't coordinated, folks. No. By the way, the PSL, very interestingly, and I've kind of brought you this story over the last 6 months too, what China is doing with a little graft and corruption. You know what they did with Biden, right? Biden and Hunter. Well, they do it with groups also. In fact, they fund, through various shady sources, a lot of the eco-terrorism and a lot of the eco-lawfare that goes on, slowing down industrial development in the United States, because who does that benefit? Oh, that's right, China. Wow, amazing. But the PSL, by the way, is a political party pretty clever because they're not required to publicly disclose its funding. However, intrepid journalists, real journalists, have tracked down that a good amount of its source of funding is the pro-Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, Millionaires Network. They have a network, okay? They launder their money from the government through their millionaire network, who in return for favors by the CCP's party elite, go out and spread the wealth, to create and foment riots and insurrections wherever they wish. In this case, the United States. Anyway, the CCP Millionaires Network, who is funding the PSL, and I have a feeling these other groups too, or it's being dispersed from the PCL since the reporting requirements are rather dim to these other groups, along with the NGOs and the grants from Obama and etc. They also fund media organizations, right, to further spread the word. But don't you worry, folks, because that newsman, newswoman that you're listening to on TV, they can't be bought. They are absolutely above all that. In fact, they wouldn't even sell their soul for an advertisement that pays for their airtime, would they? Okay. The 5501 movement. The 5501 movement, I don't even know what it stands for, to be honest with you. It was formed in response simply to the election of Trump for the second time. That was its whole reason for being. And it promoted the protests on Blue Sky, which is obviously, it's like Act Blue. Act Blue illegally raises money, including foreign donations. The CCP again. And Blue Sky is kind of the media, the social media arm of Act Blue, although they completely, shall we say, claim innocence on any type of association. But they promoted the protests, all the protests around the country throughout the weekend and this upcoming national day of protest. And the 5501 press coordinator, his name is Hunter Dunn, an American, posted about being personally involved in the protests and rah, 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 Quote, 5501 is a peaceful movement, its website says. Quote, violence of any kind will not be tolerated, unquote, its website says. In the meantime, places are burning, cars are overturned, people are getting hurt, police are getting stoned, and Molotov cocktails are being thrown at troops. Mostly peaceful. Now, there are other outfits involved in all this. These are some of the main players, but I think you get kind of the gist, shall we say. But let me tell you, my next show will be an eye-opener for you because you're sitting back thinking, well, it's not happening in my town or in my city, and, it's just a bunch of friggin' jerks out there in the streets of LA, and they're all whack-balls out there anyway. No, you're totally wrong. You're totally wrong. And do not underestimate your enemy. And these people are the enemy of the Constitution, the enemy of the United States, and the enemy of your freedom. So make sure you listen to the next show and make sure you pass it on. In fact, pass the link of this one on, ring the little ring-a-ding-ding so you know when they're coming out. Please throw a like our way, subscribe, whatever you need to do, and visit the articles on the website, on therightsideradio.com, which will give you a lot more detail. And in the case of the Epic Times article and all this stuff, some really in-depth, great links within the article. Just click on them and you can go to the next level of information. It's very cool. All right, you keep the wind at your back, keep the Molotov cocktails out of your driveway, lock and load, and we will go from there. The last thing I want to talk about is Israel and Iran. I put an excellent article up on the website about how Iran got schnookered on this deal. It's really good. It's really good. And I think that Israel probably did a lot of damage to Iran, more so than we were told in the first raid they did several months ago, where they knocked out their capabilities to track and defend against airstrikes. There were over 200 Israeli planes involved in this particular strike. Man, that's a lot of planes. I mean, you're talking about 4 or 5 battle groups, carrier groups. I mean, that'll give you an idea. And missiles and all sorts of things. And Iran has now retaliated. This is Friday night. This will be posted on Saturday, the 15th of June. And we'll see what develops over the weekend. The markets are in a turmoil. And Iran is trying to strike back. There are explosions in Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, other Israeli towns and settlements. The government has their air raid shelters going in Israel. They're quite prepared for all this stuff, obviously. They've been living with it for 50 years or more. And what's going to happen there, I don't know. This could go a whole bunch of ways, folks. Remember when I brought you the points of potential conflict? I think it was 4 or 5 shows ago. I forget exactly what the title of the show was. Listen to them all because they'll all bring you up to speed. And this was one of the key ones. And I told you that I thought Israel would attack Iran. That they really have no choice. I mean, whatever you may think of Israel and Iran, if you're Israel and you have the throngs, the jihadi throngs in Iran and all their top brass, 20 of whom died in the strike. Good job, Israel. All their top brass saying death to America and death to Israel. I mean, you don't think they're kidding, do you? If you've never read Mein Kampf by Adolf Hitler, you should read it. Okay, this was written by him prior to the brutality, the bestiality, the concentration camps, the Holocaust, and the beginnings of World War II. He told you exactly what he was going to do. Never disbelieve a despot, a dictator, and an ideologue when they tell you what they're going to do to you and that they hate you. That's a really bad mistake. And Iran has told us what they think of Israel and what they think of the United States and what they plan to do if they get a nuclear weapon, at the same time professing to not want a nuclear weapon, of course. Yes. You know, in Arabic cultures, it's actually like a feather in your hat to lie to an adversary and that they believe it, just so you know. It's not like our culture at all, not even the least. Sharia is not like the Constitution. So I don't know what's going to happen there. Hopefully you folks, really bad things could happen. I mean, if China gets involved because their oil supply is cut off, I mean, that's something they can't afford right now. I don't think Russia will get involved because I think they have their hands full over in Ukraine, but you never know. They're certainly shipping arms into Iran. The United States involvement, that's going to depend upon what Iran does. If they attack U.S. military bases or they sink a naval ship with a swarm of drones, anything could happen. This is a very, very tense situation, even though it's kind of being, my impression is kind of being downplayed by the mainstream media, but it's very, very intense. It's very, very tense, and the outcome is completely unknown. Completely unknown. So hopefully you've been preparing for these types of moments, and there's going to be more of them coming our way. And go to our preparedness page. It'll give you some nice tips. I'm going to give a plug to an outfit called Canadian Prepper. His news channel is great. Maybe some of the best international news on the web. But his prepping channel, which is Canadian Prepper, the other channel is Prepper News, is superb. I mean, he has a bunch of good information, contacts, resources, all sorts of stuff. You ought to start boning up on this stuff, guys, okay, if you haven't already. And I hope that you are prepared to the extent you can be or that you want to be. And if you're not, it's not too late to at least get some rudimentary steps done, like maybe getting 3 months of food in the cupboard at least, and taking some other steps that are discussed on the preparedness page and by some of these prepping outfits who know what they're doing on YouTube and other outlets and channels. Because unfortunately, what's happening in the Mideast right now is not going to be the only occasion we're sitting back with biting our nails a little bit to see which way the pendulum swings, peace or war. All right, that's all I have to say. Keep the wind at your back. We'll talk to you in a few days. Keep her safe, and happy birthday, Donald Trump.
Please remember, if you've missed any shows, just click on Show Archive and you'll find all of his shows. We look forward to seeing you here again next week for another episode of Read Lance Rosenthal on the Right Side.